If you got something, let it rip.
I'm never going to do this again.
Everybody grapples with this idea that you're really a fraud.
Like, I'm alive.
And that's when it clicked with me. And I thought, these are not superheroes. These are just men that can do super things.
This is Matt Del Negro, and you are listening to the new stripped down 10,000 No's. Today's episode is a throwback to the long-form conversations I started this podcast with back in 2017. So what you're hearing is a raw, unscripted conversation with someone I've worked with, someone I've known, or been inspired by in some way. If you like what you hear, you may also be interested in my working actors community, where I have conversations like this every week with artists just like you and bring in an industry VIP every month to join us. So for now, enjoy the conversation, but if you want to be a part of the working actors community, stick around to the end to find out how.
What we do here is go back.
Today we've got veteran actor Josh Pais with us. You know him from Joker, Ray Donovan, A Man in Full, 150 plus acting credits. He's also the founder of Committed Impulse, where he's been teaching for about 3 decades. He's trained Navy SEALs, Oscar winners, startup founders, taught them how to turn fear and rejection into high-performance fuel. And he's got a new book called Lose Your Mind, The Path to Creative Invincibility. We're going to talk all about it today. Josh Pais.
What actors face is maybe a little bit more extreme than what everyone else faces. And so that's what the book addresses, really the universality of what happens when you come up against something and go into your head and shut your whole system down. And I found that it's really for actors, but really for everyone else, there's 2 areas that really stop us. And one is when we feel a certain sensation that we have decided is bad, like, nervousness, fear, anxiety. I know when I was in acting school, I was told, if you feel those things, you're doing it wrong. And you're not prepared, you're not, whatever. And that fucked me up, because I was like, okay, and then I'd go audition and feel so much nervousness. And then I would go in my head, and then it was, and then it was a disaster. And I'll go on a little bit of a tangent here, but I remembered, it was one of those actor nights where it's like early on, it was like, I don't even know if I can do this, dude. And I remembered something that happened with my dad, which was, I grew up in the East Village in Alphabet City, and he had this job, and I didn't know what it was. Like when I was 6, he would have this floor to ceiling blackboard, and he would do these squiggles on it, all day. And then finally I was like, what is your job? I confronted him, which was probably the first time I confronted him, because I was a little scared of him. And he said, well, Joshua, do you see that table next to you? And I said, yes. And do you see your knee? I said, yes. And he said, the smallest part of that table and the smallest part of your knee are the same things, atoms. And he said, that's what I explore, the building blocks of the universe. And his story, he was a theoretical physicist who worked with Einstein and Niels Bohr and Oppenheimer and all those dudes. So like cut back to me in the middle of the night going like, I don't know if I can do this because I'm feeling all the wrong stuff. And I started to ponder the notion that if my body is made out of atoms, then emotions must be connected to atoms. And I started just experimenting, like if I felt anxiety, like which was often like a churning, maybe fast, out of control vibration in my upper torso, if I just stayed with the literal vibration of it and just welcomed it and breathed into it, it converted into creative fuel. It converted into something that I could play with, and it took it out of judgment. It was more like, because anxiety, if you really tune into it, it's a it's just an energetic frequency in the body. And it's not good and it's not bad. And so the more I connected to what the actual sensation was, that opened things up for me. And that's one of the elements in the book, to teach people how to not get jammed up when they're feeling something that they've decided is bad.
Yeah. You're making me think of that story that Tony Robbins tells, that story of, I can't remember, it may be Carly Simon. It's some famous singer who he worked with, I believe. Might not have been her, but she
No, it sounds familiar, but I
is it
don't.
She
Keep going.
she had
Keep
stage
going.
fright. She
Let's
had
say
stage
it was
yeah,
definitely Carly
it
Simon.
was
Okay.
Carly Simon. Okay,
Ah,
so stage fright, and he said, what's the sensation? And she'd say, my palms get, before I go out, my palms get sweaty, my heart starts palpitating, and I know that I can't go perform. And then he worked with, or I don't know if he worked with him directly or what, but Bruce Springsteen. And he said, what's it like before you go on stage? And he said, my hands get sweaty, my heart starts to palpitate, and then I know I'm ready to go out there. And
mm,
it's like the moral of the story is what you're saying, which is it's the same symptoms, but it's just a different association with those symptoms. One person was led to believe that is going to shut me down. The other person
yeah.
was led to believe that means I'm ready to roll. So
Yep. Love that.
that's kind of what I'm hearing from you. And I can also identify, just as you know, because I've been doing this forever too,
Yeah,
that
totally.
there have been times where I've harnessed that energy and it's been magical. And there have been times where the fear or the anxiety shut me down and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
I've had both.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's the second chapter in the book is called The Greatest Myth of Our Time. And I think the greatest myth of our time, and that causes so many problems in so many areas throughout the world, personally and globally, is this myth that there are good sensations and bad sensations. And as long as we hold that, we're gonna be it makes life really challenging, because it's built into our DNA to feel this full range of sensation. And it's kind of insane to go like, oh, this part of me, which is in my design, is good, but this part of me is bad. And then when the bad, quote unquote, bad thing happens, then what happens to people is they start to manage it, suppress it. I don't like it. I can't withstand it. And so they jam it down, they disconnect from their body as a way to alleviate the intensity of it. But the problem with that is that then our attention goes into our head, because we're not in our body and we go in our head. So, like you were describing, like if you ride that charge, and sometimes, yeah, it's intense, it's like magic comes out. And if you try to manage it because you think it's bad, then you end up listening to how you suck.
Yeah.
It's like, and this happens for everybody, that I'm not good enough. What are they thinking? Everything was better. Everything was worse. It's going to get better. It's going to get, just all this jumble. And that is not supporting your creativity, when we're listening to that stuff. And
Yeah.
it's not to be messed with from my point of view. From my point of view, it's not about trying to improve your thoughts. It's like literally, I use the example of like if you have a motorcycle helmet on your head and it has speakers going, "You're not good enough. They really screwed you over, blah, blah." Instead of going like, "No, I am good enough. It's just like take the motorcycle helmet off, put it in the trash, and don't even play in that game." And the way to not play in that game, I have four access points, which will pull you out of your head. And the first one is just to recognize that you're in your head. And what happens is, we'll be in a situation and then all of a sudden we don't even know and we're spinning off somewhere else. What am I going to do later? But you know. And then there's a moment of where you realize that you just were not here. And then in my classes, I'll have everybody say, "I'm back." And that's just to come back, recognize that you just spun out, "I'm back." And then to just return to the information in the body, to breathe, to connect more to the information in the body, and to really connect to the immediate environment and to see it as it is, to see it how a baby or a dog might see it, not like there's a pillar in front of me and my mind will just go pillar there's no experience. But if I just see the details, the shape, the texture, the color, it's like it pulls me into the moment and this gets really quiet. And that opens the creative channel.
Yeah, there's so many things you're saying that are reminding me of, like, just when you're talking about the good and the bad and the kind of like deciding this is good, this is bad. I always think of it, for the last couple years, I've played a lot of characters that would be probably described as despicable sociopaths. And
It's the
but
most fun.
yeah, and people will ask me, well, how do you do? And I just go, they don't think that. They are just, you have to find whatever it is within yourself that relates to that. Hopefully, in
Yeah.
my life, I'm not the sociopath that some of the characters are, but there are pathways there, and if I cut myself off to certain parts of myself, I couldn't play those characters. Whereas
Yeah.
if we realize, I mean, I feel like that's the basis of all acting, is that we are, all shades of kind of good and bad, and there's all these different combinations of different traits. And then when you play a character that's that way, you have to kind of open yourself up to where is that within you, and
Hmm.
how can you relate, and then not judging, but then trying to defend that person's point of view. um
Right.
I was thinking of that, and then also this book, um where is it? How to Stop Acting, by Harold Guskin. I don't know if you know Harold Guskin, but I've worked
I
with
know.
his,
I
you
know.
know,
Have you worked with him? I don't know. I'm
no,
not.
he's passed, but I've worked with his wife, and I've read the book, but it's also very kind of, that idea that we get in our heads, but like what is happening with the text right now that is alive for me right now, because all of the judgments that we have of how we're going to play this character and what how, like, you can plan it all out, but it's like the text, or in your case what you're talking about, the whatever the present moment is, just be there. So that
Yeah.
idea of like whatever the text makes me feel, if I'm open to what I'm feeling right now in the moment, and I'm honest about whatever it brings up, the rest of the text and the story will all tell itself, but the actor just has to be present,
Totally.
you know?
Totally. And people are craving, like if you go to a play, for example, and if in 20 seconds, if it's going to be a night of agony for the audience, or if that actor, regardless of what their experience is open to it and is going to ride their if they are riding their journey, then the text always comes alive. And I think that's what you're saying too. It's like if you offer exactly where you are, the audience's imagination instantly fires up. And if you're managing to the extent that you're managing your experience is relative to how much an audience can connect. Because if we as an actor are disconnecting from ourselves, it's you're making it really hard for the audience to connect to you because you're cutting the tether, between the two. And this stuff is, it's an act of bravery, for anyone to step into a high pressure situation and to be open to the unknown.
Yeah.
And, it's really, in a sense, training the nervous system that you're not going to die, but we're going to step into something that's never happened before. And we need to stay open as opposed to go in,
Yeah. It's
armor.
I always find it ironic because the if you, whether it's the performances you think about or just in life, the people that you think about that or I think about that are inspiring, that are have done things that a lot of people have not done, always those people have put themselves in a position of what you're talking about, position of vulnerability where
Yeah.
there is the option that they could, I know you've worked with Navy SEALs, you've worked with other, besides just actors, other people that are kind of high up in whatever their field is. And I believe that nobody is in a position like that where they're kind of at the top of their field without having put themselves into a situation where they could fail or where
Yeah.
they're really vulnerable. Like you're talking about the actor on stage.
Yeah.
That's the one that's really open to that. Yes, that lets the audience in. And yes, that also could be a complete disaster because they're open to it. They're not managing it.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it's
And the
exciting.
irony is that if it is being managed, then it's more likely going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
Which is counter to our mind because our mind is like, I know what to do, you know, and it's trying, I think we have these ancient survival strategies that we've inherited, where somewhere in our lineage, someone has survived by being very protective, very small, not gone out of the cave, and they survived. And then that passed down, that survival strategy. And, in this era that we're in, it's that strategy is no longer servicing us.
Yeah.
We have to, on some level, so much of the chaos in the world is possibly because we're so living in our head and disconnected from this amazing instrument, and our head is pretty much, I found that when in a class or a workshop, I'll have people say, what's your 7 key statements that your mind drops down? Just so that if you can recognize, like for me, like, in years ago, taking the subway to an audition in New York, on my way, I would be like, I, I, I'm a terrible actor. What am I doing? I don't know how. I don't, I'm like, what am I doing? You know? And then I started to recognize that that was one of my 7 statements that would drop in to, for my mind to lure me into a long mental drama about it. But once I recognized that statement that happened typically on the subway, um, it was like, okay, I'm back. And then I could come back into my body. And it's key to recognize whatever statement drops in that pulls you into a mental drama. Because if you don't see it and your mind wants to keep you out of the moment. And if you can catch the little tricks, it's dropping down these little things, hoping you're going to grab on and then spiral out, and not be present. And
So,
it's,
sorry to interrupt. So
no,
when you say there are seven statements, do you think like you have your seven statements, I have mine, or do you
yes,
mean like there are recurring statements
yeah.
that
Yeah, and they may evolve over time. And I'm saying seven because I've been experimenting with this for years and years. And most people will come up to about seven, and then they're like, no, I think that it's the sweet spot.
what are
And
examples of seven? I'm just curious because I'm
I'm um well, it's I'll like I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too young. I'm not talented. They don't like me. Um, those are some classics. I mean, what
yeah.
are you aware of
Well, yeah,
any?
I mean, it's funny because I always say the root, I had actually had an acting coach who used to say this. I've adopted it, but the root of all bad acting is the thought, I'm not enough. Because then you try to overcompensate, you don't believe, you then try to project because you
Right,
underneath you feel like you're not enough. Um,
right,
yeah, all of those things would um when you were talking about this thing that's passed down of like trying to manage and protect and get certainty, there's definitely that exists for me where I used to I used to have this thing where when I'd be in a dip, you know, career wise, I would have this thing of like, oh my God, my family, we're going to be in a tent. Like we're not gonna, and I
totally.
just had a vision of my entire family living in a tent, like on the side of a hill. You know,
Right.
it's like that's not really empowering, but that's
No,
where my mind went.
right.
Um,
And what was the like what was the seed? What was the initial statement? Like,
Probably, at that point, I would think it would be like, you're never going to work again.
okay, yeah. And so, just recognizing that's like such a classic. I have that one. Um, that, but to recognize that that's one of your things that your mind's trying to pull you into, like, it drops that down for you. It goes into whole tent fantasy and, you know,
Yeah.
how am I going to put clothes on my kids, whatever. Um, but if you can know when you hear that statement that your mind, that for one, it's an indication that you're barely breathing. Yeah. You're not feeling anything and you're practically blind, like you're not connected to your immediate environment. And by just reversing, using the four access points that's all described in the book, it just repatterns you back into the moment. And you might be feeling a lot of stuff. Being present doesn't mean you're calm and peaceful. It includes that, but it might be like there's a big charge in your body. And if you just stay with it, another thing that I've been experimenting with, if any sensation that you fully stay with will shift in 7 to 12 seconds. Or you try to manage it and then it's like you're trapping a squirrel in a little cage and you're like, I'm fine, man. How you do?
Yeah.
It's or just like and just access that as an impulse.
Yeah. That's it. Everything you're saying, it's cool to hear it because you're putting slightly different language on things that I've been thinking about or talking about,
Yeah.
but I like hearing your uh, your particular take on it, and also knowing, because I know a little bit of your story and committed impulses. You've been teaching for how long? How long has that been?
Like, you know, 30 years on
30
and
years.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Uh,
you have like real world examples of watching people uh,
yeah.
go through these stages and
Yep.
helping them through them. And everything you're saying is, it's all stuff that feels familiar to me. I may phrase it slightly differently, but it makes me want to read the book and hear your particular, because it sounds like you have a honed version of like how to deal with it versus most people who kind of maybe they know some of this, but it's not as like scientifically. It sounds like because you've focused on this,
Yeah.
you have some real techniques.
Yeah.
Um,
I've looked at teaching as really a laboratory of just experimenting, with myself and with, everyone. Like, how can we get to where we can create in the present, you know?
yeah,
And it's also, it's, as you were saying earlier, it's so applicable to, first of all, every actor in their life, but also everyone else in the world. Not everyone, but most people have the equivalent of an audience. And, regardless of their profession or even going on a date, in a sense, is, stepping in, it's like you're facing a new audience. And so these same tools, I just really, and the publisher really wanted me to take this stuff and just apply it to life, particularly for creative people, but we're all creative people.
yeah, agreed. Question for you about you've mentioned a couple times the 4 points.
Yeah, the four access.
Explain 4 access points. Explain
Yeah.
that to us.
So I touched on it. So the four access points to presence. One is I'm back. As soon as you're aware that your mind has taken you, say I'm back. Next, and I'll guide you through it a little bit. So say I'm back.
I'm back.
Okay. And then tune into whatever the loudest sensation is in your body. So what do you feel? And it doesn't have to be anything profound, but just what's the loudest sensation in your body right now?
Well, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but right now, the thing that I'm most aware of, I have this big light here on my,
Okay.
so I don't know if that's, you know,
So what do you feel on your face? Or is it like it's
maybe
too
a little
bright?
too bright. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. And what's another sensation that you have?
Um,
Like, do you feel like playing with this idea that the body is atoms, can you feel anything just moving energetically in your body? Like for me right now, I feel like up here, it's just kind of moving like this behind my rib
yeah,
cage.
I feel that here. I feel
Huh?
that. And in the back, I think because I've been sitting in this position and because I just was on for like an hour prior to us talking, I feel tight here. This
Okay.
feels more alive. This feels more tight and almost like I'm stuck.
Right, right. And so just going back to it's all good. We don't want to hold anything as good or bad. Like in the moment of creation, even if you feel stuck and like clenched, it's like if that is the truth in that moment, like that's the place to begin from. And let me ask you, and you can just say shut up. But in that tight area, is there any emotional quality to it? Like if you just breathe into, like aim your breath into it, or does it have a color? Or does it feel like it's made out of something?
I mean, if anything, if there's like it's uh maybe the words coming as like control, because it feels like I'm kind of like to sit in frame. I'm kind
Right.
of
Yep.
being controlled by this to keep me here.
Okay.
Or
Okay, good.
I don't know if that.
Yeah. And so the next, so first is I'm back to realize that you've checked out, then come into tapping into sensation here. And the next is just to breathe, to feel it more. So just take some breaths to feel that area that feels contracted, just to feel it more so that you're using your breath to enhance the connection to the body. And very often we can get caught up in using breath to disconnect from the body, but you want to breathe to come in here because our creativity is in here. And then at the same time, see something in front of you and see as if you're seeing it for the first time, see the shape of it, the color of it, the texture, the lightness, the darkness, maybe the space around it, and breathe and feel the sensation in your body and see that texture. And so those are the four access points. And by continuing to play with them, it just gives you it gives you bravery may not be the right word, but it allows you to surrender to this moment.
It's
And
funny
we're
though.
training ourselves to not listen to this. Yeah, what were you going to say?
I was going to say you said maybe it's not bravery. I was thinking freedom, and
Yeah,
it's funny that the word I used for this was control, because when you had me look at an object in front of me, there's something on top of my camera that, holds for microphone. It's not even being used now, but I just
right.
started looking at that and noticing I've never really looked at it. I'm noticing the shape of it. It's got these grooves on the side, and then you mentioned the color, and I'm looking at the gray and the texture. It's smooth and there's black on top. And the more I started to focus on that, the more I felt a little bit less of this kind of keeping me down. And then I felt a little more agile or open.
Yeah. And maybe quieter up here.
Yeah. Yeah, because all of my attention was just being
Yeah.
put on. I didn't know what you were going to ask me to look at next. So I was listening to you, looking at that, and I wasn't really thinking about this. And then it kind of got a little bit
Yeah.
looser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, don't underestimate, like this 7 to 12 second rule of that the more you connect to anything, it's going to start shifting and shifting on its own.
Yeah. So couple questions. Um, you've been teaching for a long time, you've been acting for a long time. What brought about the book right now? And what could people, because people watching this, they're actors or listening to it, actors, but they're more than just actors. What can they, like why now? Why did it come out now? And then what can people expect to get from it, so that hopefully people will
Yeah.
go get it and
Yeah.
feel like they get something out of it.
I mean, somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought one day I'll write a book. And then how this came about, I was in London a couple years ago, and somebody was asking me, like, what is this committed impulse that you do? And I just started telling them about it. And it was just a great conversation, and I didn't think anything of it. And then about 6 weeks later, this guy said, I just pitched you to a publisher, in London, and they are very interested. I had a Zoom with them. They wanted me to do a book, and then I met an agent, and she was like, hold on, like let's send this out to more people, and went to a bidding war. And so it was it there was not an intention or a direct intention. And in that conversation, there was no intention. I was just excited about the work that I do. And so that's how it came to be. And what people can get to it, like the subtitle, it's Lose Your Mind, The Path to Creative Invincibility. And what people can get from this is, regardless of what they're feeling, regardless of the thoughts in their head, they are going, which are the two things that stop people the most, they're going to be able to do their best work in whatever it is that they do. And the world, there's so much uncertainty right now, and it just seems to be increasing, and the robots aren't even fully here yet. Um, but it's there, things are moving at a very fast clip throughout the planet right now. And there's a lot of uncertainty. And so this will give you ways of dealing with uncertainty that will continue to nurture your nervous system, that won't lock you down, that won't shut down your creativity, but will open up your creativity. And now more than ever, we need your creativity. We need, in whatever your profession is, like scientists, we need to nurture scientists' creativity, because so many of the problems in the world are solvable. And if we are shutting ourselves down and protecting ourselves and trying to present some persona that's not who we are, we're limiting the potential of the species. And so it's just my deep wish that everybody can have fun. A lot of the book is just how to have fun and how important having fun is, and to unleash their essence, unleash their creativity, because that's just, for whatever reason, that's just throughout my life, it's just been something so important to me to support in other people. And when I see anyone's creativity, like that door open and they're just fully in it, it's, I love witnessing it. And I love, when I experience it, and when I'm acting or when I was writing this book. And it's just something, it's a level of humanity that I feel is necessary. It's a key element for people's well-being. And it's also this constant state of suppression that we've been taught to do, to manage it. You're taking a frequency in your body, you're compressing it, turning it into matter. In a sense, the body gets tight, and that tightness, it starts out as just a tight area, then it turns into pain, and then it can just, pivot into all kinds of other unhealthy things. And the more our body is healthiest when we're open to the wave of sensation that's there. And we need to trust that more than listening to basically how we suck, we're not good enough, fill in the blank.
I love it. All right, that's it. If you dug this clip enough that you want to become a part of this community, just go to 10,000nos.com to join. In the meantime, thank you for listening or watching. We're glad you're here. And remember, failure is just opportunity in disguise. You can flip the script and make your setbacks serve you. See you next time.